What is up? It's the J&J Hockey Podcast, Episode 9, Part 2. I'm Joshua.
I'm Josiah.
And today we will be finishing off our predictions. First prediction here is Washington v. New York. So let's start off, same as we did for the West. Offense, defense, goaltending, intangibles. So offense, it's no contest for me. Like, Washington's got far better offense,
Washington.
Ovi, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Oshie, all those guys. I think the only one on the Islanders that can hold a candle to that is Barzal, but Barzal against all those guys is nothing. So definitely going to go offense on Capitals side here.
And defense.
Well, you didn't even say anything on offense.
Offense is the Capitals. And it's, like you said, there's only one good forward on the Islanders.
I think because the Islanders are so well coached, I think honestly their defense is probably better. Just not because of personnel. If it was personnel, Washington for sure. But how the team is coached defensively, I think makes Islanders overall a better defensive team.
Yeah, I mean, the stats says it all, and the Islanders were one of the top defensive teams in the NHL this year. Part of the reason that because they can't score for the life of them, but the reason that they were up there this year and last year was because of good goaltending and probably departing that spook.
Yeah. Goaltending, this one's super hard for me. A few years ago, it would have been Washington for sure, back when Holtby was himself. But now, it's kind of it's interesting. Islanders have that platoon going on, but they have a higher floor than Holtby and even Samsonov, because you don't want to play Samsonov in the playoffs, because he's not ready for it. Give him a few years maybe, if you can. Sorry. But Varlamov and Greiss don't have a higher ceiling either. Holtby can steal a game when he's on, but when he's off, he can't. Combine that with the better coaching on Islanders side, I think I'm going to give them the slight advantage in goaltending.
I think, Islanders, not to mention Varlamov was once a pretty good goaltender, too. But, yeah.
Okay, moving on to intangibles. Experience, definitely Washington. They're the only team out of these two that have won a cup, and just 2 years ago, these guys know how to go through the playoffs, and they've also struggled through several playoff defeats in the past as well. So, experience definitely goes to Washington. And then, X factor for both sides. This is tough. I don't really have a major... On Washington's side, I think it would... I'm going to say goaltending, honestly. Holtby or Samsonov could be that X factor. If Holtby... it's up to Holtby to actually bring that playoff game back in order for Washington to have success. But if he can't, then it's up to Samsonov. So I think for that reason, I'm actually going to say goaltending is the X factor.
Yeah, I was going to say for Washington's X factor is Holtby. Then for New York, it's probably Matt Barzal. I don't know.
Yeah, Islanders, I guess Barzal is the closest guy they really have to an X factor. They don't really have one. You could say goaltending on this just because it's so even. We only both gave a slight edge to the Islanders on this case. So, I guess Barzal is the closest thing to an X factor. Alright, so series predictions factoring in the fact that Islanders have already won a game.
Still the Capitals.
I
think the Capitals will still win in, the least is 5, but I'm going to say 6 or 7.
I'm going to say Capitals in 6. Alright, moving on to Philly, Montreal. So, offense, I'm going to let you start off.
Offense is... Star power goes to Philly, but in terms of depth, this is where Montreal comes in. Their team, they probably have some of the deepest forwards in the NHL. I don't know exactly what the story behind it is, but Domi's playing fourth line center. So with him playing fourth line center, you get a lot of chances when your fourth line's out there because he's going to have to be a second line center, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure, but forward probably goes to Philly.
I'm not as nice to Montreal as you are. I think Montreal kind of has some issues scoring. I don't know why Domi would be playing fourth line. I think they're just trying to give some youngsters a chance, like Hakiniemi and Suzuki. But just because Domi's playing fourth line does not mean that's where Domi should be playing. On any team, but Montreal included, he could definitely be playing higher. I think it's just due to the youngsters that they have that they want to give more ice time to. And then Philly, I don't think Montreal, especially their top offensive stars, can't hold a candle to what Philly can do on offense. With all the names that we know Philly has and has become quite recognized here, like Giroux, Voracek, Couturier, like Nolan Patrick, all those guys, the star power is definitely Philly. I think depth, Montreal gets a slight edge, but overall it's Philly for sure.
Yeah, and then defense. I'm not sure on defense, to be honest. It's pretty close. I want to say Montreal, but in terms of who has the better top end defender, it's definitely Montreal. But actually, I think I'm going to go with Montreal because Philly, Dr. Spears fallen off a cliff, and they don't have a lot of other guys that can play defense as much.
I personally disagree.
Provorov, but
Provorov is an excellent defensive D-man. Niskanen and Braun bring, excuse the pun, the brawn and leadership, experience, and defensive play, which is more than a lot of the blue liners on Montreal can bring. I think aside from Weber and perhaps Petrie, they don't have a lot on defense. Philly outcoaches Montreal on defense. Last year, I'd be saying Montreal for sure. Philly was one of the worst defensive teams in the league, but under Alain Vigneault this year, they're one of the best. So for those reasons, Philly by a mile.
Definitely not by a mile, but I think it's close. Montreal still has pretty good defense, I think. Because Ben Sherratt can play pretty good. Shea Weber.
You know that your defense is not solid when the first name you bring up is Ben Sherratt. No offense to Ben Sherratt.
No, Ben Sherratt is still a solid number 4 D-man.
Number 5, you mean.
He can't score, but he can still defend. And Jeff Petrie is really good at scoring and can still defend. You still have, and Kyle Arsenault get Carl
Alzner doesn't even play on the team. He's on their AHL team to save cap. So
he's still.
I personally think your argument has only proven my point more rather than yours. So
if he is playing, he still gives an experience factor.
But he doesn't play, so it's irrelevant. Moving on to goaltending now.
Whatever.
Hart versus Price. This one's really tough. I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Montreal, personally. Price is the most intimidating goalie in the league. He's not as good as he used to be, but his legacy from those few years where where he was unbeatable still lives on in the game, and that makes him more intimidating to the other player, far more intimidating to players in the NHL than most. And meanwhile, Hart's far younger. He doesn't have the experience Price has. And Price, I think, has a higher ceiling as of now. To steal a game, I'd be betting on Price more than Hart to if I'm picking a guy to win me a series, be that main guy in there. So for as good as Hart is, for those reasons, I'm picking Price and Montreal for goaltending.
Yeah, I can see that. But I think Montreal is, Montreal's the better team for goaltending, probably.
All right, moving on to intangibles. X factor on Philly, I think is either Gostisbehere or Hart. It would be really nice if Gostisbehere was able to turn it around for Philly. I think that would kind of propel them to going even farther into the playoffs, conference final maybe. And then if Hart can rise up to the occasion in the playoffs, which so far in the one game they have played where Philly won 2-1, Hart played amazing. So not Price did as well, but Hart, in the end he came out with the W. So So if he plays like that the rest of the series, they should be fine. They should win, and they should be able to go far. If he can't, they don't really have a backup to turn to, because Brian Elliott has never done well when he's a starter. And so for intangible, and then for the X factor for Montreal,
it's pretty obvious it's Price.
Yeah.
The reason they won the Pittsburgh series was because he played so well.
I don't know if Price is like super obvious because I was also thinking guys like Suzuki or Kotkaniemi because they are major parts of that offense and they're young guys and they just need to produce here in order for them to be able to win this series. In experience, neither team has a lot of experience. Coaching staff, even coaching staff could go either way. I think in terms of players, though, I might give slight edge to Montreal. Like more of their players are older and they've been there. But then again, it's like, Niskanen's won a cup with Philly. Braun has had a couple runs with the Sharks in his career. So you could go either way. I think I'm just going to say neither, personally.
Yeah, I guess. But anyways.
All right, my predictions.
I think
Philly in 5.
Philly, I think will win in 6. Just because Price will probably get a couple games where they can't get anything past him, and that's why.
All right. Moving on to Tampa v. Columbus. This is a super fun series. So far, it's 1-1, and well, we can make this quick. Offense, Tampa. Defense, Columbus. Goaltending, Tampa. Intangibles, Tampa. Or, no, actually, intangibles, Columbus. And there you go.
X factor for, is Stammer injured right now?
I know Hedman is back. I don't know about Stammer.
Interesting. Well, I think X factor for them is maybe Kucherov.
I don't think the Lightning really have an X factor.
That's fair, because if one guy fails and they've got another center down the pipeline,
yeah, well, I think
they still have Sorelli and
I think the closest thing the Lightning have to an X factor is knowing that they have more pressure than anyone else in the league to win the championship, and they had to go through this exact team last year, and Columbus really humbled them. So, and then I think Columbus holds the edge in intangibles. I don't really think they have a major X factor either, except for Korpisalo, if he can continue coming up big, which he has so far. Columbus knows that they have already beaten Tampa. They already know that they can, so that's not the problem. And they know that they have the psychological edge over Tampa. So I think for those reasons, I'm going to pick Columbus for intangibles. Offense, obviously, we go Tampa because Columbus has no major offensive weapons. Dubois has been a beast so far. Other than him, though, Tampa just outclasses them in every offensive area. They even have the best defensive center out of the group in Sorelli. So I think offense is pretty obvious.
And then series predictions?
Series predictions, I'm going to go Tampa in 7.
Something, for some reason, is screaming at me Columbus in 6.
Ooh, hot take! Columbus in 6. Yeah, I could see that happening.
I'm just going to say that just because I don't know if that'll actually happen, but I'm just going to say that just to make things interesting.
All right. And then the final series in the East, Boston, Carolina. The one I think is going to be the most fun. So far, Boston won the first game in the second OT. Offense, honestly, the two teams, before, when the year started, I would have said Boston for sure. Now I'm not so sure. Boston's offense has been slumping. They had a hard time against Carolina in the first game, barely coming away. And both teams are top heavy. With Carolina, if the Aho, Teravainen, and Svechkov trio aren't scoring, the entire team is not scoring. And same with Boston with Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasta. So I think I'm going to give the offensive edge to Carolina because more of their D-men can score. And like Gardner and Vatanen, and those guys can score. I think the only guy in Boston that can really score on D is Krug. So I think for those reasons, I'm going to give a very slight edge to Carolina.
Huh. Yeah. Defense is definitely Carolina.
Yeah, defense, Carolina, I don't really think there's a discussion. Like, deep is deep.
Forwards is not sure.
So neither.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not completely sure on that one. It's a closer one for me, I think. But
all right, moving on to goaltending. I don't think this is like really a contest. Rask is one of the best goalies in the league, and Carolina has a platoon going on. As good as Mrazek has been, and Reimer for that matter, it's no contest for me. Rask and Halak beat Mrazek and Reimer any day.
yeah, goaltending is easily Boston. And then intangibles, you want
Intangibles?
Yeah.
Intangibles. Boston wants to get back from this year. Carolina knows they can, they can go far, but then again, last year too, Boston defeated them. I think slight edge intangibles Boston. X Factor for Boston. Do they really have one? Like last year, it wasn't like there was a guy that didn't perform or something. I don't think Boston really has one. For Carolina, it's Sevastov for me. Last year, he was just a rookie, but now he's a major part of their offense. If he can keep producing like he has so far in these playoffs, they're going to be golden. Hello?
Yeah, but I just mean, intangibles would, I don't know exactly for that, but the X factors would be probably Pasternak, who has been pretty quiet so far, and for New Jersey, I don't know, maybe the goaltending to see if that can come through or not.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not sure.
Alright guys, well that concludes our series predictions and our podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to J&J Hockey Podcast or my channel Hey Ref so that you can listen to more. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.